So welcome everyone. I just want to introduce Dolores and Anita for Coaching for Resilience during times of change. Over to you two ladies.
Great. Thanks for the introduction, Barbara. So as Barbara said, my name is Anita Tosh, and I am a certified coactive coach from the Coaches Training Institute. I am with the Canada School of Public Service as a learning specialist. And prior to joining the school, I was with the National Managers Community as a regional manager for BC and Yukon region. And some of the content that I'll be sharing was from the coaching practices for managers, as well as coaching in action, practice makes permanent. So I wanted to give credit also to Karen Bonner before we get started. And I'm very excited to co-facilitate this session. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. My name is Dolores Calendar Taylor, and it's always a pleasure to be able to join with colleagues across Canada to be able to speak on the issues and the topics that impact our lives personally and professionally. I have been a federal public service for 22 years in Canada, and in that time, I've worked for 9 years, approximately 10 years with Corrections Canada, and that was a very amazing role, enjoying the elements of how to help citizens to return to the community in terms of a renewed focus, taking out the criminality and the drug use, stuff like that. And I'm now with Canada School for the past 12 years as a learning advisor, and I've operated in different capacities, but mainly right now we are on the transferable skills business line. So it's a pleasure to virtually doing virtual. There are many things that are new to my role, but you know what is necessary as we operate as one body. Thank you.
Thanks, Dolores. I had a little trouble hearing you. I don't know if it's just me. If you don't mind increasing your volume.
Okay. Probably wear my headphone. Thank you.
Thanks. So our objectives for today's session is to introduce you to the concepts of resilience and coaching. So what is resilience and what is coaching? And we're going to have an opportunity to provide you to experience a live coaching session. Dolores has been kind enough to share a coaching topic, and I will be coaching her because we think the value of coaching is really in experiencing it rather than hearing about what it is. And we're also going to be providing you with a coaching starter kit. And what that is a series of questions that you can apply in your personal and professional life. And I'm going to be using this model in my coaching session with Dolores.
Thank you. Is my voice better?
Yes.
Okay, so as Anita said, we have an opportunity to be able to look at some coaching challenges, and one that I certainly will present that will have a win-win situation. But at the end of the day, it is all about resiliency and merging resiliency with coaching. So I just wanted to start out with asking you, what is resiliency and why you think it is important in times of change? And we are in times of change. So if you take your notes, you can just write in the chat and just give me your thoughts to this question. It's a two-in-one question. What is resiliency and why it is so important in times of change? So take a minute.
So remember, everybody can pop out their chat. Please go ahead and send it to all panelists and attendees. And we're seeing some comments happening.
Yes, I'm seeing some movement happening. I'm seeing like overcoming challenges, ability to adapt and keep going, adapting, the ability to continue on, adaptability, flexibility. Oh, wow, they're coming fast. Being kind, it helps coping. Thank you so much. Reminding oneself of moving forward, push through stronger and more knowledgeable. Resilience is moving forward, the ability to bounce back. And it's important right now because things are changing so rapidly. Keep moving forward. Thank you, thank you. This is awesome. So it's really, you've answered the question basically, what is resiliency and why is important in times of change? The reality about it is that a lot of times we know what is resiliency, but the challenge we face is how do we put it into action? And that's why I look forward so much to today's session, because I myself will gain so much from this experience. Thank you so much. Next slide. So we have a definition for you, and I'm sure it encompasses a lot of what you said before. Resilience is really the capacity to withstand stress and catastrophe. It is the capacity to adapt and rebuild, which means that, you know what, resilience is really put to the test when something is happening in our lives. It could be this current period of time we're experiencing. It could be just things that are happening personally in our own lives, or things connected to our loved ones. The capacity to work through the emotions and effects of stress and painful events. So in life, things happen that are very painful, but resiliency is always a thing that helps us. It doesn't help us to necessarily prevent things from happening, but what it helps us to do is to be able to adapt to deal with the pain. And the last point here, a capacity that can be learned, but you must want it. So this is very, very important. A lot of times we think that resiliency is about some special gene that was downloaded to myself or yourself, but it's really a capacity that we all have. So it's like a muscle that looks kind of, weak, and you can work it. And that keeps it very, very accessible to each and every one. Thank you. There are a number of factors that contribute to resilience. And I really would like you to think about this really carefully and ask yourself about, what do you see in yourself that helps you to be the resilient person that you are? The person who showed up this morning, the person that will show up later, the person that is dealing with so many different things that are happening, different resiliency around virtual resiliency. There's some benefits, of course, but we know that the world has many precautions as we go through this extended period of COVID and social distancing. But what research has said, in addition to what we've pretty much known, what you said in your chat, is that resilience is about seeing yourself as resilient and not as a victim. We have to start off from that script, because some people go through life where they see themselves as a victim. But when we start to see ourselves as someone who's resilient, we can actually appreciate, for example, a coaching session. Positive thoughts and emotions. So the key is negativity will come, but how do we redirect those thoughts to bring them into positivity? How do we change our emotions? There's certain things outside our control when we think of things like legitimate psychological and emotional factors, maybe like a mental illness or some form of situation that may impact us, a stress, some person that may be naturally going through depression because of a situation unresolved or resolved. So I want you to know that I'm not saying that positive thoughts and emotions are things that you can just fancy your hand up and it will just happen. It is a process, and it's a process sometimes that involves a choice. Seeking help from others. So this is the ability to not see ourselves as having all the answers, but the ability to be able to be vulnerable. And vulnerable is not about being weak. It's about trusting that there is one or two people in our lives that can provide some opportunity for us to be able to speak and to be able to just share. And it's not a weakness, it's actually a healthy support system. And that builds on the next point, which is close relationships. And you don't need to have many close relationships, but indeed, as you travel through life, you will have some close relationships that are very pivotal. It may be one or two persons, it may be family and non-family, but whatever it is, you play a key role in making decisions around that. It's also about the ability to manage strong emotions and impulses. You see that, we live in a world where when strong emotions come, some people may hide under the cloak of various things. And some examples may be alcoholism. You start off just having one drink, and then you realize it may become an element of your life where you're trying to utilize that to be able to cope with strong emotions or setbacks or challenges. So again, it's about healthy coping strategies. Where are we going to go to? where are we going to go to? Are we going to go to the bottle? Are we going to go to maladaptive practices, which are harmful practices? Or are we going to try to build our coping strategies because we have that capacity, as the earlier slide said? And helping others. The Mother Teresa's of the world, for example, you know, she dealt with so much issues in that part of the world and just the condition of man. But a lot of the time spent in that, she felt that to serve and to have that compassion, it brought something back to her life as well. So it wasn't disempowering, it was empowering. And just having a sense of control. Resiliency is like making a choice, like saying to yourself, you know what, I choose to look at how I can impact this situation. I choose to operate in my circle of influence and not worry about my circle of concerns. And as we get into this session, you will see that resilience comes to bear in many elements as we move forward, just as coaching will come to bear as we get to the latter portion of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolores. I really like the points you shared regarding resiliency, particularly around vulnerability, because as a coachee, the one who's being coached, you're being vulnerable when you're sharing that topic. And also the piece around helping others. There is something about letting go of ego. So when you're coaching, it's not about you. It's about how best to serve the client. So you're letting go of approval, wanting to be liked, but really being in a space of service to the client, to the coachee. And so I wanted to share a quote from Paul Lefebvre, who is a leadership coach. And he defined coaching, it's not about teaching the caterpillar how to fly. It's about creating an opening for it to see the possibility. So it's about changing, it's about seeing the possibilities. So you're not looking at the same thing over and over again. And through coaching, it's exploring it from a different angle. And so in the coaching foundation, there's a different pace. It's much slower. In our current times, we're very action oriented. We're very reactive. We can be in a, you know, that to-do list. And so we may not have that opportunity to really access another way of seeing things. But in coaching, we create a slower pace. So there's an opportunity for introspection, for reflection, and accessing our intuition as well. So in that quote, it's having access to another way of seeing things in order to produce a different outcome. And that's how coaching can really help, when you're exploring those possibilities and being really listened to. So what is coaching? The coaching is trusting that the person you're coaching has the answers within, that they are creative, resourceful, and whole. And so your role as a coach is like evoking that excellence in others. And it's really parking that problem solving, that fixing muscle, which we're so good at. And it has led us to probably our roles in terms of our ability to action things. And so in our coaching conversation, I invite you to suspend that strong advice giving muscle and just to be really present. And so as I'm sharing this, you may be wondering, well, what is the difference between coaching, mentoring, and managing? And in managing, there is an attachment to the outcome. So there is performance management, it's hierarchical. And in coaching, there doesn't have to be a hierarchy and you're not attached to the outcome. So that's where the difference is. In mentoring, oftentimes it is hierarchical, and one is giving advice. You're seeking their advice and guidance. So this is very helpful when you're starting a new position, you have a new initiative, to be partnered up with someone who has the experience and guidance. And in coaching, there doesn't have to be a hierarchy. Oftentimes there is no hierarchy because the belief is that the one you're coaching has the answers within. And so you are trusting them, you're creating that space for them to share what's important to them. So I'm going to share a model It's called the 3 types of conversation. And in this model, there's relationship, possibility, and action. And in the relationship piece, this is the foundation. This is where you're building trust. You're being really curious about the other. And you are practicing deep listening. And I wanted to share 3 levels of listening. And the first level, that's the internal listening. And that's where it's all about you. So when someone's sharing a story, you connect to their story and you want to share how it impacts you. So that's level 1. And this is where the one you're coaching should be. But as a coach, the level should be at level 2, which is an intentional listening. So you're listening to understand. And it's a harder focus. The intention is there to really listen and to put distractions aside and focus on the one who's sharing the story. And the third level, this is called the global listening. And this is where you're so present that you can hear things that may not be shared verbally. And you can access this through your intuition. And this muscle can be developed through the practice of mindfulness and meditation. So when we're having that coaching conversation, to really practice that level 2 of listening to understand, or the level 3 of the global listening. And again, so global listening is when you ask someone how they are and they say they're fine, but you can feel intuitively there's something else that's going on. So we looked at relationship. And so relationship is really about the listening, the building trust, and being curious. The next level is the possibility. And that's where you're exploring what are some things that they may have already considered or tried. So we're exploring those possibilities. And the last piece is the action item. So what is one thing that they can do? And so this model is something that I'm going to practice in my coaching conversation with Dolores. And this was one of the objectives that we wanted to give you, the 6-pack starter kit. And it reflects that model of relationship, possibility, and action. So for the first 3 components, it's really building the relationship. So number 1, listening to their story. What is important to them? And really trying to uncover what's underneath the story. What is important? So this is the commitment piece. And it's a very powerful question. And then the third question under relationship is, so what would success look like? And so you can see they're all open-ended questions. After the relationship piece, we move to the possibility. And this is accessing what they already know. So what have you tried? What are 1 or 2 possibilities that you may want to try or explore? And the last one is the action. So what is one request or action that you could take as a next step? And so when you look at this model, you can see the majority is the foundation piece on the relationship. And then the possibility, there's 2 questions, and the last one is the action. And so if we jump into action without exploring the relationship, we miss the commitment and the connection. And if we jump into action without really digging into the possibilities, we miss out on the innovation and other possibilities. So we can really take our time when we're in this process. Okay. The other piece I wanted to share is the importance of the questions, because how you ask the questions can really uncover different emotions and responses. Short questions tend to be very powerful. Okay. Dolores, is there anything you wanted to add before we move forward?
Dolores, you may be speaking, just unmute yourself. There we go.
Okay, yes, I'm good. So no, you did a great job. I totally got the process that we're going to be utilizing. And I believe that during the process, if there's anything that needs to be clarified, we can work through that. But this is pretty good.
Okay, thank you, Dolores. So when we looked at the Coaching Foundation, we talked about that it is reflection oriented. We talked about the rhythm, that it is a slower rhythm. So what we're going to do before we go into the coaching demo is to do a short grounding exercise. And so before we start, I just invite you to be really present, to be curious, and to practice listening at a level 2. So I'm going to invite you now to a grounding exercise, and I'm going to not be on video during this period because I'll invite you to close your eyes if you're comfortable. Okay, so take a moment and make sure you're in a comfortable position. So if you're sitting, feel your feet on the floor and rest your hands loosely on your lap. Roll back your shoulders. And now I invite you to close your eyes. Take a long, slow, deep breath in, and then a slow out breath, letting go. Just allow any tension to melt away as you gradually relax more and more deeply with each breath. Take another slow, deep breath in, and exhaling slowly, relaxing outward, letting go. Now take a deep third breath in. Take your time and then let it go. Let it go. Allow the breath to resume in its natural rhythm. Be receptive and notice the quality of your presence and the sense of here-ness. Gently scan your body and notice if there are any areas of tension, places that want to soften. Continue to breathe slowly and gently, allowing any tensions to melt away. There is no problem to fix or solve in this moment. Let your cheeks and jaw soften, and again, let go of all tension. Now I'd like to invite you to focus on one thing that you would like to bring to this session. It could be presence, curiosity, openness. So you're feeling good now, you're relaxed and refreshed. And when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes as we experience a coaching conversation. Okay. So now we're going to move into our coaching conversation with Dolores. And I think we can have the questions in the background. And just let us know, Barb, when we're ready to go.
I'm just checking chat. Everything seems pretty okay. You're getting some nice thanks in chat for the exercise.
Okay. So why don't we get started? I'd like to thank you, Dolores, for volunteering to be our coach and to be vulnerable in front of this large group. So for this coaching conversation, what would you like to talk about?
I would like to speak about,
And if you could
notice that
speak up,
there's-
please, just to
okay.
ensure that everyone can hear you.
Maybe my voice. So I'd like to speak about an issue I'm facing that is also personal and professional. So that's why it's okay to share it right here. During this current season of COVID and social distancing, I have an alien mom in a senior's home in the Caribbean. And by the way, when I say alien, I mean that over the last 2 weeks, we've been getting daily calls from the home, the doctors. And on some days, I felt like if this is the call that will say she's passed. Well, so this has happened. I'm in a time zone that is like 4 hours difference, and my siblings are in a time zone that is 1 hour difference. They're in the eastern part of Canada. But my challenge that I'm facing, and I've been facing over the last 2 weeks from the time this started, is trying to balance the pros and cons of going to see my mom, given the risk of going versus the guilt of not going. And the reason why it also falls into the professional domain is because, as I said, it's a daily thing. I'm not off from work. I'm working and my mind has to be at work. My actions have to be at work. But I do get calls, I do get updates, and I welcome those. But at the same time, I do recognize that I still have to make a decision. I'm hoping that maybe she has more time. In life, we never know who lives, who die when. There's no certainty about something because of age. I really need to reconcile within myself as whether I can live with myself or if I can play out the reality of she doesn't have COVID or anything like that. The home she is in is not at risk. If I did go there, I just wanted to say this as background information. If I did go there, I would be like one of few people who saw her in an isolated area, a different part of the home. So the risk that I'm speaking about would more be about the risk to travel 5 hours to Toronto and then another 5 hours to the Caribbean. So and also the guilt I'm speaking about is the guilt around culturally how we view funerals. People are Zooming, people are doing all kinds of things, but it's still a cultural premonition or connection to how we will grieve if a person did pass at that age with that level of community connectedness. So, and at the end of the day, the connectedness, the real connectedness is the value of the relationship mother-daughter. Is that clear, or do you need any more elaboration?
No, that was clear. I just wanted to say I'm sorry that you're experiencing this with your mom. And I'm curious, what is important about this topic to you?
It's a universal thing right now. Like every place is I what is important to me is that I have been there as someone who have heard loud cries from people who have gone through the situation, but it wasn't like anything to plan for. It was the results. I have two close friends who've lost loved ones to COVID, and so I know that midnight scream, right? And at the same time, what is also important about it is that the decision is very timely. It is at a point in time where in about 9 days I will be on vacation. Typically, in 15 years, this is a 15th year that I would not have traveled back to see my mom. I have gone to the Caribbean for the last 20 something years, excluding once when I didn't go 15 years ago. So this year actually marks the fact that I would not have gone. I would have broken that cycle. And the expectation of me being there comes from the fact that every year I'm there. So I'm there like basically between mid-December to mid-January. So I do have that leave time, but what is bigger right now is all the changes, all the admonitions around what we should or shouldn't do. It is like more or less following procedure, following expectations versus the heart element of it.
So I'm hearing a lot of like shoulds and guilt. What would it be to let go of the expectations?
That would be a very good thing. The only thing I would want to balance, there's a difference between letting go, I believe, and denial. So to me, I would want to know that if I'm letting go, that I have weighed it out, pros and cons, so that I can live with the Dolores. The year might pass by and we may all get through this. And my
Dolores,
mom
can you
being
speak up a little bit?
the year may pass by. I have my volume at the most. The year may pass by and we may I may get through this and it may not look like what it looks like now. But at the end of the day, there's certain things I can still weigh. The things I could weigh is a trip merited now? My mom is still alive. Or is it a trip that if this does happen and she does pass, that I go afterwards, a year later or a month later? Are you hearing me better now?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
So as you're sharing, where are you at right now?
I'm at the area where I live from day to day. You wait for the calls, and sometimes you feel as if the calls are, this is it. I have my mom, by the way, has dementia, so there's a role I've played where I've asked the senior director of the nursing home, very powerful, nice people. She's given us the videos. She gives us the opportunity to go around her bed, and I'm speaking, I'm praying, I'm just saying to her, you're free to go. You have done a great job. I kind of felt as if I had closure. And then the 2 days later, she was drinking and eating again. 2 days before that, her vital signs were down. So I think what's happening for me is that I'm going through the fluctuating roles of something that's not precise. And at the same time, I'm going through the roles where I don't want to be casual and think that this is just, oh, this is easy. I recognize that no matter how old a loved one is, death is highly personal and highly painful.
Mm. I really feel for you, for the uncertainty. And it sounds like the up and down of not knowing what you're going to hear next.
Yes. Yes, it does, Anita. I'm glad you recognize that, because I have to be professional in my role. I have to choose to be highly functional. I and I also have to recognize that the world doesn't stop because this is happening for me.
Mhm.
Other people have things that they're happening, but I do know that I'm coming closer to having to I know that I'm coming closer to having to make a decision. And a lot of the times there's some external expectations that are also valid as well. So I just believe this conversation is necessary, and I believe it is helpful, because I don't just want to exist in make believe. I want to exist in the reality that this can move faster than I anticipate.
So I know you mentioned that you had explored pros and cons in terms of your
Yeah.
decision.
Yes. I
What,
did. I did.
yeah. What would success look like for you?
Success would honestly look like, if we always want more time, and I mean, miracles happen every day for different people. Success would look like if if this period of time could be suspended, if it could be suspended. And because when COVID first started, I was never a disbeliever, but I felt when they said it was going to go for a year or two, I was like, yeah, right. In my mind, I thought, this was just people speaking without really context. But we are in February. We would perhaps be a year and 2 months, because it started elsewhere before we really heard about it. So to me, success would, to answer your question, and a good question for me as well, it would look like if I wish my mom could could last for until it is feasible to travel safely without feeling as if I am I'm compromising myself or any others. I know that in the Caribbean, specifically Barbados, that's where I'm from, they only have about maybe, they don't have a lot of cases of COVID. Most of the cases that have come there are inherited. So there's also an element of them not necessarily welcoming us with open arms, right? There's
Mhm.
also the element of them recognizing it is an island, it's a place where people, natives want to go, is a place where tourists still go, is a place where you can work. The Prime Minister has announced that if you want to work from Barbados, you will get a visa, you can come and work from here. So to me, when I think of that, that hasn't dawned on me as something that I want to do, because I believe that if I was there, I wouldn't want to have to share two roles, look after mom and work. I would totally be in one versus or the other. But to me, I'm just actually looking at what success would look like. And success would look like more time, but I don't want to be in a fancy world. I don't want to be create an atmosphere that, oh, you know, she wants something to happen that is not meant to be. I just want to be in the world where I can be available. I want to return to some kind of normalcy. The kind of guilt that I carry is not only a mother-daughter guilt or obligation feeling. The kind of guilt that I feel is like, I don't feel that I'm 100% connected to even my professional roles. And I can't say a phone call can't come at between 9 and 12 a.m. I can't say suspend that call because I'm working. I'm not there yet. I don't know if I'll ever be there. And perhaps you can relate to me a bit, because I know your mom is also in a senior's home. But at the same time, this is not just being in a senior's home. This is conversation about, well, she's refusing food. Well, there's no liquids for the last 2 days. Well, we're not able to bring her in a wheelchair and bring her to the front. There's no interest. This is like you're hearing someone say vital signs are closing down. So I believe that I'm on grace right now today as I sit here, because this has been 2 weeks and we were looking for, based on what we were getting professionally, we were getting some truths around what was happening. So my success would look like, just as how she has sustained the last 2 weeks, can she sustain it, so that this element of traveling, trying to go get a COVID test, and trying to mediate 5 flights in tap on a plane, and then a 5 hours flight, and then the other 5 hour flight. It's fairly complicated, but it's highly emotional as well.
Mm.
And I know I didn't give you another element of success. So one element would be that her health is extended in a positive way. And the other element is for us to come up with some workable plan that involves me not feeling as if I have to be obliged to do this because the culture does it, or because I'm the youngest daughter.
Right. So I'm hearing that pressure for to be the good daughter. What's that about?
I think I think it's really about the truth that I am the youngest, but nobody's bringing it over like that. I think because I'm the last daughter to have left Barbados 20 something years ago. I used to go to high school in Canada, American Barbados, but in terms of living abroad, living in Canada permanently, I was the last one. And my siblings, my sisters are older than I am. So I would be the one that was the last recipient of the benefits of in-phase parenting. Even though I was an adult, a young adult, I would say that that's an embedded obligation that I may feel. I think nobody is really enforcing it. It is just my process of
Right.
thinking, well, if I go every year for almost 1 month, and that's the cycle that nobody has ever kept or never expected that they wanted to keep. It was something that I maintained. So this is the first year that cycle would be broken.
Mm. Yeah, I'm just wondering what's that like for you?
It's like I see this as it's a tough thing, because on the one hand, I hear my sister say, Dolores, if your mom was able to talk to you, she would not expect you to come right now. She wouldn't expect you to come. Um, and I hear that, you know. So to me, I'm the kind of person that just looks for all the possibility. I
Mhm.
just think there's somebody traveling somewhere right now that does involve some level of risk, but it also involves some level of hope. So I can't tell you that I will, I might say I wouldn't go and then I might go.
Right.
So I will deal with, if I do go, I will make sure that I manage all the fears and all the consequences in terms of recognizing that I'm going to a place that has very high standards and very limited cases, but recognizing that I'd have to do the tests here, there, and then I come back. So it's still restricted, but at the same time, I do know it does involve. And also recognizing that I'm looking at the COVID elements, but also recognizing the loss, right? Recognizing that I will be in a place where I will actually be part of the active grieving and the actual ceremony. So, I mean, I don't want, for the sake of not sounding like I'm putting my mom in the grave, because I'm not. I just like to let you guys know that she's 94 years old. So I'm not speaking about a person that is 70 something. I'm speaking
Mhm.
about someone who really and truly has had a life of tests, but a life of success, a life of purpose, a life of value, and someone who's actually at an age where you could clearly say that you know, the doctors are not far off in terms of what they're perceiving.
So, if you were to access your most positive self, what advice would she give you?
My most positive,
Self, Dolores.
okay, what, oh, okay.
Looking out
I
from
wasn't
you.
sure if you meant what would be the advice my mom would give me, or if it was what would be the advice I would give myself. I, my most positive voice, or what would say would, I know it's highly emotional and sometimes it's really hard to think of what I would say if I was looking at this objectively. I'm still in the subjective vein, but I really, last night I was looking at Air Canada flights. So I'm not far removed from thinking that there are possibilities, because I was looking at the possibility of if I could go there while she's still alive, I don't, and I came back, I would not really be thinking I need to go back for memorial or funeral, right? So to me, I was looking at what's the dwell time that she has right now. And if I had gone by the guidelines of 2 weeks ago, I would say by the time I get there it's over. But right now I'm still hopeful. And I'm still operating as someone who's making provision. I haven't reclaimed my leave and I haven't clawed it back. I'm still utilizing the 5 weeks off. So I believe that that the possibilities for me taking a trip, I know I would not go through the States to get to the Caribbean. I know that my route of getting there would either be through Toronto, which is the stop, and then Barbados. But at the same time, I believe that even as I speak here, even as participants are diligently sharing in this situation with me, which I do appreciate, I do believe that I have, even as I work through this process that is occurring right now, I do believe it does provide a sense of strength, and it does provide a sense of recognition that I I can make choices, and those choices are driven not by emotions, but can be driven by reality and facts.
Hmm. So, you've explored the possibility of flying there. What are
Yes.
some other possibilities that you're um, exploring?
I've also explored the possibility. We did say that we would have a memorial. She's almost like a matriarch in the community. So, and one thing with the Caribbean culture is that people are so honorable in funerals. Funerals have so much people. People want that. They want that. So I've explored the possibilities of my son being a representative for me. Younger, he's younger. He can read something for me on my behalf. I've explored the possibility of us having the technology available that is there to do a distant closure. Because to me, I when I asked myself what I was more worried about, I know that my mom, you know, she wouldn't be thinking that I need to be there, but I think I was more worried about the speculation of what the community would say. Can't believe that Dolores didn't come to see her mother,
Mm.
you know. send off. I think that in the back of me, that is there. You're from a close knitted small island of 260,000 people, and then a smaller community. So to me, to be honest with you, I think that it's more about, I would want to be there if things outside of COVID weren't operating. But I also think it's also about feeling concerned about what someone would say or think. And I have no control over that.
Right. That's a good insight. So with that knowledge, what is one step that you could take?
Well, the one step that I could take, I mean, this is a step, Anita. I don't feel any kind of, I just see this as a very essential step because I'm not relying on people that I know in my personal life or my family to inform my decision or my biases. I've actually put it out because I know that there might be some people online right now that could relate to this because of perhaps a personal experience or an experience that somebody else has shared with them. But certainly from my perspective, one possibility would be actually to speak up. The one thing that I didn't share that I would want to say that has really touched my heart in a way is when my brother who lives in Barbados, he's a businessman, he's very busy, but he's been there all along. We go through, we come out, we go through. He's never left Barbados to live abroad. But what I would say is that the one thing that I feel in my spirit is when he said to me, I want you to be here with me if anything happens, if she passes. And it forced me into the thinking. I started to get feedback from people that guys who usually act so cool and strong, that this element of it is harder for them. So I feel as if part of my promise is wanting to feel as if I can fulfill that for him as well. But I kind of start to think about what we can do, from a distance, where we can still feel as if we are in that, if this is the case for this period of time in our lives, if I could be part of that process in terms of Zoom, part of that process. Because to me, the biggest thing is I would want to feel as if I'm a part of course, we will have to ration who can come down the road. And every time I feel as if I need to apologize for the fact that I'm speaking as if it's passé, as if it's happened already. But I realize that I cannot really, I find it hard to deal with probabilities. Because probabilities is like me saying that my mom will predecease me. That is typically what would happen. But it feels so difficult to speak like that. And it feels so impersonal. But at the same time, I am okay and open to, I'm not a person that has a will. So you do know that this kind of topic, I have certain things out there that is given to certain companies for like the bank and stuff like that. But in terms of how people sit back and do a will and stuff like that, for some reason, I don't know if it's cultural, I find that like exercise a bit scary because, I don't feel I'm close enough to it. But out of this whole thing, I can tell you that one possibility is getting feedback and information on how other people have done it, how other people can feel a part of something that might happen that can indeed empower them. And that is something we can do. And if we have to do it, if this is a timing to do it, right?
I hear a shift in your voice.
There is a shift.
Lighter.
Yeah, this is you're not providing answers for me. I believe that the process is more about being transparent and at the same time about treating this as if this was somebody else, how would I want them to be? So I feel as if as I work through these questions, I know some of them are spontaneous, some of them are, as I flip and look at the slide, I can see that some of them are quite natural and have naturally evolved. And what I like about this is that I do feel a shift in myself. I do feel there's energy. I do feel as if this has created an opportunity for me to understand. And I do feel wonderful to know that I'm part of a job or a team that nobody will say, you can't go if you need to go. I'm part of something where I still have choices and that every choice will do have some outcome. But at the same time, I just wanted to say that I feel that I have more objectivity. I think I came on more subjective, which is natural, right? But at the
Mhm.
same time, I believe as if the process is moving me to some level of objectivity.
Okay. Thank you, Dolores. Thank you for sharing and being so honest with us and to provide us this learning opportunity. And I am curious because you talked about the choice and what you have control over, which is linked to resiliency. So, following this process, how resilient are you feeling?
feeling, I'm feeling quite resilient. I feel it's a very useful process. I know it's a very useful process, and I think that even for me to, I could have brought any challenge that is in my forefront, but I thought this one was quite necessary and quite urgent, and at the same time, I trust the process. I've seen it operate with great success in others' life, and more than anything else, I trust you because I've worked with you closely for several years, and I do know that you're not malicious in any way, and I do trust that is a tool for me as well as it could be a tool for others. So I actually feel as if the level of resiliency is pretty high. I believe that it keeps me going. I have sick leave in the bank. If I want to take in rest, I could, but it's not going to go away in terms of like that. I have to be able to face the reality that I've had grace to think this through for 2 weeks, but some people don't have that. Some
Mm,
people get sudden news, right? So I'm just grateful that I have been able to share life with my mom for 94 years. I haven't given up on that for her 94 years, certainly. Um, but certainly at some juncture, we have to come to a point where we make a choice. I'm a big advocate of resiliency and recognizing the value of coaching. I'm a big advocate of realizing that it's about a choice and it's about operating in your circle of influence. So when it comes to the personal things, I seek out measures to help me to move within that sphere of influence. I prefer to be operating from a proactive element. I prefer to operate from a proactive element than to operate from a reactive element. And I believe that this process was slow enough. I like the fact that it wasn't rushed. I like the fact that, yes, we presented the quotient and the resiliency elements, but I like the practical. I don't feel as if you've rushed me in any way, but I do believe that I'm able to move forward with a greater awareness as to where I am and the reality.
okay. Thank you so much. Let's see. I'm going to move it to the participants.
Thank you.
Barbara, I'm having difficulty moving to the next slide.
You can stop the share and restart, but it should be okay, or try using the keyboard keys.
Okay.
It's back with your notes. You may want to go to your settings again.
I can't seem to access. Oh, here we go. Thank you. So I'm curious from the participants what the takeaway was for you. Which questions landed, which ones had an impact on Dolores, and what was your learning? And so I can't seem to access anything at this point. So you can raise your hand or you can write in the chat. And then Dolores, are you able to access the chat?
Yes, I'm accessing. I just wanted to share with you that I see that someone has said my takeaway. You asked very simple questions. There was nothing complicated. You really just kept it simple. Some people have said thank you for sharing. Some people have recognized wonderful coaching demo. Thanks to both of you. Someone recognized that they know it was fairly emotional, but they also recognized that it was also a necessity. And then I saw that someone said such a difficult choice to make during this pandemic, but it seems like you're advancing your decision-making process. I see that someone have said people are really touched by your story, Dolores. Thank you. I want to just respond to the person who said that because, when I was thinking about this, there was a part of me that wanted to change the story and go with a safe topic. But then I realized that I would still be stuck. And I ran it by Anita, and I recognized that this for me is very liberating. I see myself as part of a unit of people who are working to meet goals for the public servants of Canada and the citizens of Canada. And I see it also as because I'm still working. If I was off at home and this was happening, there would be no need for me to resonate with this. But because I'm still actively on the job today, I want to do my best as a facilitator, but also as a coachee and also as a respecter and co-participant as well. So I really appreciate these comments, and I was more concerned that it would be maybe a heavy load for you guys. But I just feel as if it's a collective, some collective energy that has been involved. Thank you.
Thanks, Dolores. And I also invite the participants, if you have a takeaway question for Dolores, something that you want her to reflect in the future to help her in this process, to feel free to write in the chat.
I see someone wrote something in the chat that's also very helpful. Everything is helpful. This person said that I could have considered, not sure to express myself correctly, but have you considered she could die by the time you were preparing for your trip? Probably yes, but how are you considering preparing your grief or mourning? Not sure which word is good, and try to tame this other view of the situation. Sorry, might sound rude. My English is not very good. You don't sound rude at all. I've considered that. That's a very good statement, actually. I do recognize this, and I think there was something I said where I said that some people don't have the luxury of having time to think or plan. Some people really have a situation that occurs, as you said, right away, and the action is upon them. So I thought that was very powerful, and thanks for that comment. I'm very happy that I decided to go with this example because I feel as if I have this kind of feedback is also very helpful in this professional setting, is very, very helpful.
Great. Thank you
And
for
then there's a good one here too, another good one. I'm curious about what the dividing line is between providing counseling and a professional coaching session. I understand this is likely a very contextual question. However, this example seems to me to be more amenable to a counselor or a psychologist. Anita, you want to respond to that? I mean, I could respond as well, but it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of blurry. But usually when it is from a counselor or psychologist, there is more in terms of the past, of their history, what they experienced in their childhood. But I think in this context, the coaching approach is also appropriate. And also there are psychologists and counselors who use the coaching hat as well.
Yeah, something stands out to me though, Anita, that you said to me when you was making the dividing line. You made it quite clear that this is not meant to provide answers in terms. This is meant to be highly reflective. This is meant for a person to be able to just speak through something. Sometimes it may just be a decisional balance that a person might do. The pros may look like if there are really like there might be 10 pros on the list and there might be 4 consequences, but at the same time, if you put a value to the pros, you might realize that the consequences are outweigh the pros in terms of making a decision. So I do believe that coaching is distinct from counseling. Counselors typically are expected to not give answers, but sometimes we hear of them moving in that domain. Whereas a coach is the one who looks at possibilities that you may not ever see, like some of the things that were mentioned in the 6-liner questioning. There are things that I was too subjective to even actualize.
Mm-hmm. Also, I wanted to share with the coaching topic, there is a similarity between resilience and the coaching in terms of it being something you have control over. So the topic is something you're in control of there. It is within your sphere of influence and it's something you care about. So whenever you're having that coaching conversation, it's helpful to have that frame, unless it's a spontaneous coaching conversation.
And perhaps as well, I kind of think that I see, even though there's value for myself, I foresee there's value. I could ask you, how was that for you, Anita? But the key would be is that nobody leaves like stressed.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the learning for me is the importance of mindfulness, to be really present and to continue that practice. I think the stronger we are in that, the stronger we are as a coach.
Yeah. Um, yeah, there's some beautiful, there's lots coming up in chat. I don't know if you want to hear some of them, or what would you like me to do? Would you like me to share them? I really want to acknowledge that people have provided some great feedback. I like someone said, thank you, Dolores, my affirmations for you and your family. And thank you, Anita, for that lovely demonstration. And then someone said, extended care, only one person could go in. It was a hard decision, but I chose not to go. I spoke to my team leader and her coaching helped me to make my decision. Closure did not happen, but the pandemic is upon us and we have to make decisions based on the guideline and move forward. That's very powerful as well. There's some great, I don't know how many people are here, but the amount of information we're getting.
That's great. We have, I think it was a really great turnout.
Yes. Thank you, Dolores. I feel for you and good luck. How will you grieve it if you don't see your mother before the end? These are things to consider. Have you thought of things to do to grieve in the long run? So yeah, these are very powerful, helpful statements.
Okay, great. Dolores, would you like to put your video on?
Yes, if that's what, for sure.
Thank you. Okay. And so I hope that this was helpful for you in terms of your coaching, that you have now the toolkit that you can use anywhere, actually. I find it really helpful. And you could see how relationship possibility and action is a great model.
Yeah. Yes.
And please feel free to comment in the chats, and we're going to be looking at it following this session.
Yeah.
Dolores, would you like to share some of the upcoming sessions for future?
I think before that, I think that this session is like when I look at the comments in the chat and stuff like that, sometimes we don't hear people speak. They might not be hearing their voice, but their voices are coming through loud and clear, in terms of being highly supportive individuals, highly acknowledging the value of this opportunity and also the value for themselves. So even before I say thank you, I just wanted to acknowledge, I want to say thank you to Anita as well. I want to say thank you to the participants, to the producers, to everyone that was involved in this. I know that we will remain behind if there's someone who had a chat or a comment that they shared, they didn't hear it spoken or they didn't hear it read. But if you want to stay back behind, we can speak to that for a few minutes or so. And at the same time, I want you to know that there's something called the Thrive series that's happening at the school right now under the transferable skills business line. And it has 3 modules. One is complete, one is close to completion, and one is going to be started right after Christmas. The 3 series model, the course is called D050 number, and it's called Unleashing Resiliency During Change. And it's available on GC Campus to register for that course. You will notice that in that course there, it builds on the resiliency, but it also builds on strategies. And that's as well, I want to let you know there's also a job aid on resiliency that is also accessible on GC Campus. There's a course that we haven't converted yet to virtual, and it's called Coaching for Effective Leadership. It may still be sitting in GC campus with the notes and information as a course, but I do want you to keep on the lookout for that course, or you can follow up with France or anyone involved in the planning team, and we will provide more information. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for offering your feedback. Thank you for sharing in this session with respect to resiliency as it gives way to coaching as an action step. And I also want you to know that I am closing off this session in terms of my portion of coming off the video to let you know that I appreciate what you have said, what you have shared. And I pray and I believe that reciprocal benefits and reciprocal discussions will emanate from this opportunity that we've all been a part of. Thank you. And I turn it over to Anita.
Thank you for that acknowledgement, Dolores, to all our participants. Even though we can't hear you or see you, we know you're with us, and we really appreciate your thoughtfulness to be here and your learning and your comments. I also wanted to share, I know this was in English, there is a recorded version in French that will be accessible on Padlot on Friday, which is the learning hub for the coaching secretariat. And so more information will be provided in the daily newsletter. Thank you again to all of you. Thanks, special thanks to Dolores, and also to our producers, to Barbara and Alex. Thank you.
Thank you.